Hey everybody, this is Craig Hardesty, the board chair of Out on Film, and I want to welcome you to Out on Films in Conversations. And today I am absolutely thrilled to have the producer of one of my favorite films of the season, Sweetheart, Michelle Antoniades. Michelle, welcome to Out on Film.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is our pleasure to have you and to talk about this film. And, you know, for people who are joining us before they watch the film, you know, Sweetheart is this really wonderful journey of a family who goes on holiday, a young lesbian on the cusp of adulthood. And as most of these holidays go, it goes horribly wrong and it goes beautifully right. and it's funny at a time where we need it funny, and positive at a time when we always need positive portrayals of lesbians and queer kids. And really, so thank you for making a film at a time where we needed to see a film like this, a really wonderful fresh perspective on a coming of age film. So Michelle, I want to thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit about how we all came to find AJ in this story.
Well, so Marley Morrison, writer director, who just wrote such a wonderful depiction of AJ. I mean, it came from basically the need to tell a story with a lesbian lead character, first and foremost, and specifically one that doesn't have to go through trauma or doesn't die at the end, right, or yes, doesn't get bullied or beaten up. Or Marley specifically wanted to tell an uplifting story with a lesbian lead, and that's kind of, you know, it's kind of where it came from. A story that maybe if we had watched it when we were growing up in the 90s, maybe we would have felt a little bit better about ourselves, and not just what was depicted in the media at the time. So it was really an importance to increase visibility, but also to allow people who don't necessarily see themselves reflected on screen to look at AJ and be like, oh, that was me, right, or that is me, or, you know.
That was the me I wanted to be back then.
Yeah. Because she's quite confident in herself at times as well, and she is sure, we think, of her sexuality, and then, you know, she has to make sure. And I think this generation, I think the new generation of queer kids, you know, they have a lot more freedom than we did in generations before, and it's kind of, the film is also to celebrate that a little bit, and with lots of color.
With lots of color. You know, one of the things that is refreshing about this story is, like you said, AJ has already come out. We already, you know, we start you know, post coming out, and she is sure of herself. She is wonderfully, like all of us, I think, at 17, wonderfully cynical, wonderfully sullen, until she meets that beautiful girl. And everything changes. So it's such a really wonderful moment where we meet AJ kind of coming into this family vacation and seeing Isla's picture for the first time, running into Isla for the first time, and you get that moment of, you know, that first crush.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what will hopefully relate with audiences around the world, is that it is that feeling of falling in love for the first time, and we can all remember, you know, what that felt like, and what idiots we made of ourselves. And I think that's just really important to kind of highlight as well, because whatever generation you are, you know, you're always going to remember your first love or your first crush. And that confusion as well, as a lesbian female, of, is this person gay? Like, right, you know, am I falling in love with a straight woman again? And it's just that kind of universal feeling of meeting someone and just wanting to be around them all the time. And I think Molly captures that really well in AJ and Isla, I think, because Isla's character is so unapologetically herself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things about Isla and the whole relationship is that you're wondering, as is AJ, am I falling in love with a straight girl? Because I'm assuming I'm falling in love with a straight girl. And the fluidity of Isla, like you said,
Mhm.
is unapologetic. I'm like, I am who I am, and I will do this. And
Yeah.
um, so talk to us a little bit about kind of like the fluidity of Isla and what she embodies.
I think Isla embodies perhaps the not the lesser known bisexual, shall we say. She is femme presenting, you know, she's attracted to men and women, and she is, because she's so stunningly beautiful, people judge her immediately.
Yeah.
Even AJ says she's the kind of girl who likes boys.
Right. Who always has
You
a boyfriend.
yeah, has a boyfriend. And even Lucy, AJ's sister, you know, the first time she meets her, she says, "Oh, she's pretty."
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like acknowledging her beauty, and then she's that kind of misunderstood um, beauty who has a lot more depth.
She's very
Um,
complex.
yeah,
Yeah.
she is incredibly complex, and had we had more time, we would have gone into her, you know, her background and character a lot more. But I also think that the character of Isla kind of she's such a great escape for AJ as
Yeah.
well. And she says to her, "You can be whoever you want to be on holiday,"
Right.
which is so true. And I just think, yeah, I think it's so. Marley has a way of capturing the essence of these characters without pushing it too much
Right.
in your face, and it's kind of, you know, it's a lot from observation, and experience, but also from the actors themselves, and the way that they interpreted the script. And I think Ella Ray was the first person we cast actually as
Okay.
Isla. And then Sophia as Lucy was our second, and AJ was the last to be
Okay.
cast. But it was so important to us that they took those parts and kind of put their own thoughts and their own feelings. And when we were on set, sometimes Nell would turn to AJ, and sorry, Nell is AJ. Nell would turn to Marley, the director, and say, you know, I feel like doing this, and Marley would just say, just go with what you feel. So it was a lot of their own interpretations of the character as well. Marley loves to work very collaboratively. We're both very collaborative in the film world, and that was important in rounding out both AJ and Isla's characters, I think, in what they brought to them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Nell Barlow, who is just really, really wonderful as AJ, and just brings. I mean, there's kind of like this joy to the cynicism and silliness, as like we all look back like, yeah, where you can't kind of be this self-absorbed teenager but also vulnerable. You know, she does such a wonderful turn with this character. How did you wind up finding her?
So we saw about over 100 tapes of actresses who were all so different as well, so completely different. But what we did was, so Marley and I watched the tapes separately, and then we would put a top 5 or a top 10, and then we would send it to each other without confirming, just so that there was no, you know, so that we was totally, what's the word, fair.
Right.
um, and Nell Barlow's tape was just, she had this authenticity to her from the very beginning. And I know that Marley says that she felt this kind of Joan of Arc-esque quality
Yeah.
about Nell. Especially, she did 2 self tapes actually for us, and the second one was very, you know, the way she had thought about the character, and she was just so invested. And one of the tapes that she did, which I loved, she dressed in a towel, and just as if she got out of the shower and then went straight into that shower scene where her mum says she has to dress like a girl. So it was, we were just captured by her immediately. And when we sent each other our shortlist, she was at the top of both of our
Okay.
shortlists. So we were like, okay, we're on a good one. And we did quite a few rounds of auditions with her actually. because we are part of the Film London Microwave Scheme, which is supported by BBC Film and the British Film Institute, you know, we're debut feature filmmakers, and they needed to be sure that this newcomer could lead a feature film. And one of the reasons that we kept bringing her back, and then we did a chemistry read with Ella Ray, but it was mainly because we wanted the representation of, for want of a better word, the butch lesbian,
Right.
the non-femme presenting
Yes.
lesbian. So it was so important to us that that AJ was real and authentic and not Hollywoodized, shall I say?
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, so we just fell in love with her, and then we did a chemistry read with her and Ella Ray, and Ella Ray fell in love with her, and you know, we just put them together, and they just started talking immediately, and you could see the connection, and you could see that these two would work really well on screen
Yeah.
together.
Well,
But we had to fight for her a little bit.
yeah. It's just, you know, as you said, I mean, one of the things that kind of, I would say, resonated with me watching it is just from the beginning is I love that she's a butch lesbian at 17, and just, it is so, I just want to say, it's like we haven't seen that for so long. And I'm like, yay. You know, that we can still do this. So tell us a little bit about, why was that important to be able to do that?
I mean, mainly the character of AJ is quite loosely based on Marley and
Right.
her own experiences. You know, growing up as a young lesbian and being told to dress like a girl. And I feel it's there was a reason that we put that line in the script as well, because there are so many misconceptions and stereotypes, and I guess from previous films where they have stereotyped the butch lesbian as the funny best friend, or you know,
Right.
the joker, or this, that, and the other. So it was so important for us to say, no, she's the lead, she's really cool,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are like her, so so this is visibility.
Yes.
So yeah, and we really pushed for that, you know. We didn't want her to be an unbelievable character.
Right.
We wanted her to be, you know, someone that people look at and say, wow, I am her. I am totally AJ, or my sister is totally AJ.
Right.
You know, it was so important for visibility. Yeah.
And the chemistry between Nell and El Rey is really quite wonderful. I mean, some of those scenes that they have together, you know, are just, you can just tell. I mean, it's just, they have that chemistry and make that connection, so that when we see them at the party, you never think that Elray's the straight girl leading her on, and you want to just yell to AJ, she's not leading you on, go.
She likes you.
She likes you. I mean, so talk a little bit about, I mean, you talked some about how they kind of came together, but how did they work together like that? Because they really did have a really wonderful connection, and especially that moment in the end, you know, where they just hug each other, is really quite lovely.
And there was, yeah, I mean, they're both very generous actresses, and they have quite similar ways of working, but also quite different. So I remember Ella Ray saying to me, I love working with Nell because she's so spontaneous, and I never know what she's going to do, and that's really great for actors, because it gives you something to kind of feed off. So both of them have kind of very different styles of going into things, but we made sure that they spent some time together beforehand. So we gave them like 2 days of rehearsing together. That's all we could afford.
Okay.
Because their personalities they just clicked so well. You know, it was good that was the amount of time that they had. And then of course we all, cast and crew, we all lived on the holiday park together for a month.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we were all basically family, in and out of each other's caravans, having dinner together.
Okay.
So, you know, they would kind of knock on each other's caravan and meet up and read lines, and it was like they were living in the world that was already there, created for them to be in. So I think it was I think it was a lot easier for them to find that flow and that
Okay.
groove, and to have that time together, and they trust each other as well, which
Yeah.
is really important for actors to, to communicate and to trust. And yeah, so I think we got very lucky.
And another, I'm assuming stroke of luck. I want to. So this is, it is a film about AJ. It is AJ's story of coming of age and finding first love, but it's also the story of a family who goes on holiday at a point in the family's life where everything is about to change. I mean,
Mhm.
Lucy's about to have a family. AJ's about to go off and maybe knit jumpers for elephants or whatever she's going to do. And so at the center of that part of the story is Tina, who is
Mhm.
just really, you can see this mother who's trying to have this kind of last hurrah with the family as she knows it before everything starts to transition. And so tell us a little bit about, Tina, and kind of, where Tina comes from, because she, again, who could often in these kind of stories be almost a caricature of a mother, but she's so deeply complex and richly human, and a mother and a woman. So talk a little bit about kind of how Tina came to be.
Well, I mean, that's exactly it. It was important. Marley felt it really important not to just have the mother as a sideline character, or as, the bit part that kind of
Right.
didn't add to the story. It was important that these two, Tina and AJ, their stories run parallel.
Mhm.
And Marley really wanted to show Tina's depth as well, and what she was going through as a single mom. Yes, we have AJ, who is missing her dad, and she hates the fact that she's on holiday, and she
Right.
just wants to be, you know, cool and loved and not be sad
Right.
anymore. And then Tina, who is trying to keep things together, and it was just important that she had her own story. And that's why, you will see, no spoilers, but she has a little love interest as well.
A little bit, yeah.
Um, but the key thing about these two characters that you'll see, uh, especially when they argue, is that they're so similar. The way they communicate, the way they think, the way they say things, and there's just that kind of clash of mum and daughter, which we've all been through, as
Right.
teenagers and maybe later. And she's got perfect older sister Lucy, and then
Right.
younger sister Dana, who doesn't put her foot wrong and is just the
Right.
sweetest thing in the world. And so AJ is always kind of battling, but at the end of the day, it was important to show that Tina's character she's not homophobic, she's not restrictive, she just cares about her daughter, and she just wants her to be okay. And sometimes that comes out in a way that's maybe not, correct, or kind, or
Right.
you know
It's what's so beautiful about the two of them and the moments, and even that you can see that Tina is supportive, is accepting,
Mhm,
isn't perfect. So
mhm.
she, and I was just grateful that, she's Tina's not the perfect parent of a gay child.
Yeah,
you
because
know,
nobody is.
because nobody is, and she says things that are wrong, even though she may not think they're wrong. But let's talk a little bit about Joe Hartley
Yes.
playing Tina,
Yeah.
because you watch her and she can break your heart with a look.
Mm,
I mean, without saying a word, it just,
mm.
she can break your heart with a look as a mother. So talk a little about bringing Joe Hartley on and kind of what she kind of added to this ensemble.
Oh my gosh, she added everything. We were so lucky. We almost didn't get her, actually, because we were going back and forth, because she was filming Afterlife with Ricky Gervais around the time when we wanted to film.
Okay.
So it was a lot of back and forth and trying to fit in the schedules. And then eventually we met her in London. Marley and I went and met her for coffee. And we just got on really well. And she loved Marley's script, and she loved what Marley was trying to do. And so we got her on board, again, quite near the end as well. I think we
Okay.
confirmed Nell and Joe at the same time, because again, it was we needed to make sure image wise that that they both looked the same, or similar. But more than that, it was, we had been a fan of Joe for a long, long time. And it just, the timing was just right, and it fit really well. And again, we didn't have a lot of time to rehearse. We maybe had a couple of days. But Joe is just this incredibly smart and giving actor, and she's someone who, and she really took Nell under her wing.
Okay.
And they would have a cup of tea in the morning, and and build that bond as mother and daughter on the park. And but Joe gave so much, and she was so generous. She's another one who just likes to try different options. And Marley is really great at improv with actors. And so we had, obviously, Joe is really good at comedy, Sophia, all of our actors were great at improv. So we managed to squeeze a little bit of time, especially in Joe Hartley scenes.
Okay.
For that. And she just gave us everything. She also introduced us to our composers as well, Toy Drum, who did the score. So yeah, she did a lot more than just be the amazing Tina. But yeah, we're so grateful, and a lot of it was timing, and perseverance, and luck.
And then what's really kind of lovely with Lucy and Steve, that could have gone so easily caricaturish as kind of like the high maintenance, perfect older sister, but even they have such wonderful, I mean, she's beautifully high maintenance and a lot of fun, and the center of attention. But she's also very sweet and has some really lovely moments, and they have some nice moments together. So kind of as you all kind of looked at this family, I mean, how, from the generations, from the youngest to the oldest, like you said, having AJ in between them, kind of like the middle child who can feel kind of set aside because the focus is on the other two. Kind of how did this whole family really then come together?
Gosh, that's quite interesting. I guess in every family you have so many different dynamics and personalities, and I'm the oldest of three, and Marley is the second oldest of four.
Okay.
So we both come from big families, and knowing that, that kind of dynamic that happens when you've got three or four kids or siblings, and for me especially, there's big gaps between us. So I'm very much a Lucy, in that sense. But I think it was, obviously, I know Marley wanted to kind of make Lucy's character as ridiculous as possible, and that's why Sophia had fun playing her, I think. But also, the element of truth in that, the older sister, maybe mum had her really young, and they do have a very, a close relationship when it's your firstborn, and also when you are that older sibling, you do tend to be more maternal and more, and kind of take on that role. And that's kind of where Lucy comes from, really. She's very organized. She this and this is why she says to Steve, I need this, and that's just the way she is. But deep down, she really loves her sister, and she does want her to be okay. And I mean, I'm guilty. I'm a complete Lucy, for sure. I walk into the family home and the remote is mine.
Yes. I'm the oldest of three too, and I'm very clear that I'm the favorite, and that
and they should have stopped at one.
Right.
So, it comes from truth, but ultimately there is so much love. And in familial relationships, you can argue and you can disagree, but at the end of the day, it's sticking together is what counts, especially with this family who have just gone through a divorce. And so I think it was important to have these kind of ridiculous and funny characters, but also bring an element of truth to it. And then Steve, Lucy's boyfriend, and he provides the confidant
Yeah.
side for AJ, and just gives us a little glimmer of, the good guy.
Right. A little bit of an anchor. A little bit of an anchor for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is what she needs, because
Yeah.
that's what she's now lacking. So yeah, it was yeah.
So as a producer, how did you come to this project with Marley?
Well, Marley and I have been working together for about 8 years. So we've done 3 short films together. And when we were making our 3rd short film, Baby Gravy, which also stars Sophia,
Okay.
we had already entered the microwave scheme.
Okay.
And they choose 2 groups, 2 filmmaking teams to make their first feature film. So whilst we were making that film, we had entered and then been commissioned for this scheme. So we always knew, short films and then first feature. That was kind of,
Okay.
that was the route for us. So I'm very lucky, actually, that I've been able to work with the same writer director for so long, and long may it continue. But yeah, we've always had the same vision, the same passion to bring queer stories to the forefront, without compromising as well. And there are a lot of people along the way who tried to turn the stories into something else, and we stayed very, very clear as to what it was going to be. So it was kind of a natural progression to bring that same thing to the feature film.
Well, talk about that a little bit, because we out on film and in queer film festivals in general talk a lot about representation, who tells our stories, who owns our narratives, the importance of being visible in front of and behind the camera to be able to tell our stories, because this is, as you just said, this is a story that comes through so authentically that so talk a little bit about kind of like the pressure to change and kind of make it fit a mold for other people, maybe not so for us, maybe, but talk a little bit about that pressure that as filmmakers and producers, what that process is like to really fight for your own vision and our own representation.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I guess going back to Baby Gravy with the short film, that we had when we were editing, especially. So Baby Gravy is about a same-sex couple who are trying for a baby, and they're in a restaurant waiting for their sperm donor to turn up. And that's the essence of it, and it's the conversation that kind of goes around it. And we had some notes from execs to say, even silly things like, oh, why don't you make it out that she's straight, and then, oh, surprise, she's gay, and we were like, no.
No.
She's just gay. So sometimes you might get comments like that, and it's not from a malicious place, but maybe it's just a place of ignorance and not being able to relate, and that's where you come in as a filmmaker, because you are and writers, producers, directors, you have to stick together and fight for the same thing. So as a producer, I have my director's back the whole way. That's not to say that we ignore notes. You have to take them on board, you discuss them, and then choose what serves the story. So for Baby Gravy, that note would not have served the story. In fact, it would have played into heteronormative stereotypes, which is not what we're about. We tell true stories. So, and then again with Sweetheart and then other projects kind of going through, it's all about explaining why. Sometimes you've just got to explain everything. It needs to be this way because, and then you kind of take it from there, and it's difficult, but I feel it's getting better.
Okay, good.
And that's a testament to Marley's writing as well, because she does write so beautifully and so authentically that that people can see, these stories do actually resonate.
Right.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. There's a whole world out there where
Yeah. So that's what I would say to future filmmakers as well, is, listen to the notes and then decide what's best for your story and decide what serves the story. How are we going to increase visibility if we don't tell it like it is?
right.
And that goes for, we need to be telling contemporary stories, and we need to keep relearning about queer history and teaching people about queer history. But the stories that we tell now, they've got to be progressive and they've got to move us forward, in my opinion.
So first feature. So how exciting is that? I mean, to kind of have it take off. I mean, some really lovely acclaim, and you're playing a festival circuit. So tell us a little bit, kind of how this has been as the first feature, and you're getting out there in the world. Kind of how has it been?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, we've got a lot of. There's been so much love for the film, which we'd hoped for
Right.
sure, but we didn't anticipate how amazing the reception would be. And it started with film festivals. We got the first film festival we premiered at, we got the audience award.
Okay.
At Glasgow Film Festival. So, and for us, the audience award, that is the most important. It
Right.
means the audiences are liking it, so that gave us a really nice boost. And then we were able to go out to more festivals as well as with you guys, and just to get the film out there, and to have that visibility that we were striving to get this film made for so long. And to have it out there is exciting, surreal, but so exciting as well. And I hope it, even if Marley said, even if one person watches this film and feels seen, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will resonate with way more than one person.
I think it will resonate with way more than one person. I mean, because in the end, it is so much a story about being seen, and everybody being seen, and everybody being okay.
Yeah.
That there's just that really lovely moment where she turns and says, "Mom, I'm okay," and she says, "I know," and it's like, we're all okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen, and it's such, I mean, I think it's just a way to move people in a time where I'm just going to say we need to be moved and we need to laugh, because this is a very funny film. There's some really lovely funny moments in this at a time where we need to laugh.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, timing wise, it couldn't be better, I think, because the world of Sweetheart, it puts us into this colorful, crazy, nostalgic place with these, with these characters that are so unique, but also so for the everyman as well.
Yeah.
It kind of not ticks boxes, I don't want to say that, but it fulfills more than you feel that you need when you watch it. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but that's again a testament to Marley's writing. She's always been so great, even in her short films, taking a difficult subject matter and finding a way to communicate that and convey the feeling through comedy. And it is, it's that kind of very British sarcasm thing, but hopefully something that kind of relates a little bit more around the world as well. And
I think
telling these stories through comedy is such a great way to get through and to not take it too seriously as well, like you say, and just be okay.
And we've all been on this vacation.
For sure.
We have all been in various forms on this holiday and this vacation. So Michelle, kind of what's next for the film? Kind of what's happening with it?
So we just had our UK theatrical release. We just hit UK cinemas, and that'll be ongoing. I think we've got some more sites coming out as well. Then hopefully, we've got obviously some festivals in the US, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll get it online.
All right.
That's the plan. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun. Really strange doing it all, from home and
Yes.
lockdown, we actually haven't managed to experience any festivals,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But maybe next time, with the next one, we'll come and see you guys for
Okay.
sure if you'll have
We would
us.
love to have you. We would love to have you here. Uh, Michelle, as we wrap up, I am always curious, as people have, like you said, this took a while to make. It is a story that you all kind of are rooted in. So as you kind of move through this, there's a part of art that stays with you. So what part of this experience and Sweetheart and AJ in particular are you always going to take with you?
Well, I mean, quite tangibly, I'm very good friends with Nell Barlow
Okay.
now. And so I will take her with me as my friend. And Ella Ray Smith, we're very good friends as well. And she is now real life best friends with Gemma G in the film.
Okay.
So friendships, I guess, friendships is the most important thing, because we were in this bubble, together, and we experienced it together, and it was a first feature for Nell. So that is definitely what I'll take from it. And from AJ herself as a character, I hope to think that I will take a little more confidence in myself as well, and remember my 17-year-old self, and to remember where I am now, and be, just remind myself that I'm okay. I guess. And I hope that's what people would take, whether they relate to AJ or Isla or Tina or Lucy or anyone, just to take that little bit of confidence in seeing these characters reflected on screen, and knowing that it is possible, to tell these stories.
And to be okay.
And to be okay. I
Yeah.
hope I answered the question. I feel
Yes,
like I
you
went
did.
off on
That's
a
a
tangent.
wonderful. It's a wonderful way to kind of take that with you, and I hope that's what we all take, is to look at our 17-year-old selves, whether you're 17 now or like way beyond that, like I am, but kind of look back a little fondly and be like, yeah, this was just like really great,
Exactly.
and a nice
And
look
be
back or a
inspired
nice look
to,
forward.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Always look forward,
yeah,
and perhaps be inspired to tell your own story,
exactly. So Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Um, we are big champions of this film, Sweetheart. I hope all of you out there have a chance to engage with this film, see it, enjoy it, and take with it what you will, and kind of just be okay and be kind to your 17-year-old sullen, cynical, wonderful self. So from all of
and
us
your
here,
family.
so from all of us here at Out on Film, Michelle, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing this story of Sweetheart with all of us at Out on Film and our patrons. And we will see you all next time for another In Conversation. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye. Thank you.